Hello. I'm back. Hello, I'm early. Yay. Yay. The OG's got to hear me out for this one live. And then I promise you guys will enjoy it. Hello. Am I good? You guys can see me and hear me okay? I just did a test live because I remember yesterday I was having issues. Here. Good. Okay. Thank you, Abuelita. Hi, Evie. Am I looking ready for an all-nighter with y'all? Exactly, old days. We're covering Rene Enriquez right now. And then we're gonna do I wanted to do 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗏, but I also wanted to do 𝗠𝗲𝗃𝗫𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. So whatever one that is, we're gonna do either or, and then I want to do Jeffrey Epstein. Gorgeous and clear. Yay! Seems okay now. It wasn't me yesterday. It wasn't me. I tried. It was freaking YouTube doing me wrong. But hello, welcome back. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. You guys could be anywhere on the YouTube streets, but you're choosing to be here, and it's a little bit of a different vibe, and just trust me on it. I have been following Rene Enriquez, aka Boxer, for a while. He has a channel and his story is just astounding. If you don't know who he is, it's a little controversial. It's a little controversial. Looks clear. Thanks, boo. Um, and I know how people feel about it. Some people don't care. It's more of like a prison genre related live, but we cover everything. And so he used to be he's a notorious for ex-former, whatever you want to call it, mafia leader who became a federal informant. And I know it's controversial. Yes, finally in for an all-nighter. Yes, we are having a night all-nighter. Oh, I forgot to say, please tap the like button, do all those things, YouTube things. Definitely sign up to the second channel and the TikTok if you don't already have it. Shout out to you guys for being here. I appreciate it. Let me say hi to everyone before I continue to rant. Hello. I saw Debbie, I saw Evie, I saw Cree, Vanjie, hello. Spider-Man, hey, good to see you. I saw Jawman. Am I saying that right? Vanjie, I apologize if I'm not. Whose birthday is it? Vanjie, it's your birthday. Yay. Happy birthday. I hope you have a great day and I wish you a fulfilling, peaceful, happy, healthy year ahead. And I love you so much. You are always here supporting. So shout out to you. Happy birthday to Vanjie. Everyone say happy birthday. Looks like you guys already did and beat me to it. I just was reading the chat right now. So I apologize for being late on the news. I saw beautiful Debbie in here. I saw my girl Cree. Let's see. Bree. Hi, Bree. And Old Days. I saw you and Abuelita, of course. Old Days says I'm early. Hey, Callie, big dog. What's up? Good to see you. You look beautiful. Thank you, Vanjie. I love you and appreciate you. And I saw Lockney, Justin. I saw Cactus Lido. Hey. Do I get a wish? No. First Liberties. Okay, good. Everybody's saying happy birthday. That's nice. Let's get started. We're gonna watch these interviews. They were done by Soft White Underbelly, but they're legitimate. I like Soft White Underbelly. I will link it down below too if you're not familiar with either of these channels. And I just want you guys to like pay attention to story and like let me know what you think. Like, is he a rat? Is he a snitch? Would you have done the same thing? Because on the YouTube streets and yada or whatever, people say he's a rat and he's a snitch, but I think it's a little bit hypocritical to not take into account like what would we do, right? He was supposed to die in prison. And he had life. So what would you do like if you had the opportunity, I guess, to be an informant and get another chance at life and do things differently? So it's very controversial. I know people have a lot to say. I've read comments. I've been watching his stuff for a long time, and people have a lot of stuff to say. But I personally, I'm in support. I like his channel. He has good content. He's a friend of the channel, and so I don't have anything bad to say. And so I just wanted to share these interviews if you guys haven't already seen them. And let me know what you guys think. He is with Soft White Underbelly, and he just talks everything from childhood to being the Mexican Mafia, to becoming an informant. I know some of you have already probably watched this, but if you want to just hang out with us, I would really appreciate that. And okay, let's get started. Justin, did I get it wrong? Your name? I'm sorry if I did. I thought that's what it was. Okay, let me see. Let me pull up the interview.
That's why. That's why. You'd be surprised how often I've had tough motherfuckers from prison.
Oh, dude, I think crying is good for the soul.
It's great.
Yeah, it's like.
And he's obviously blurred out for specific purposes.
Cathartic. Yeah. Now I catch myself crying at TikTok videos. I'm like, oh God, that hit me. Does my collar look okay?
You look great. You're the best dressed gangster I've ever had in here, I think.
Carlos says, be careful. That's my uncle. I don't know if that's true. So don't say that, because if it's not true, that's not cool. But don't worry. Like I said, I don't got a problem.
Former gangster.
Former
Right. Gangster.
Rene.
I'm just kidding.
Enriquez. You got the name
Carlos.
Boxer. How'd you get the name Boxer?
When we were kids, my brother and I went to a boxing gym. It was called Montebello Youth Boxing, and a couple of friends were with us, and we went in there and we trained for one day. We didn't have apparel, we didn't have tennis shoes, we didn't have nothing. We had literally ourselves going to the boxing gym. So we hit the heavy bag and tried to jump the rope, and we walked out of there, and my brother says, you know what, Boxer would be a good name for you. And it stuck with me, and I hate the name because I don't box. So it's just a name that stuck with me throughout my entire adult life and came to define me really as a gang member and a gangster.
What was your childhood like?
Very traumatic. I had a traumatic childhood. I had a dysfunctional family. There was a lot of domestic violence that I witnessed. And,
and trigger warning. Like I said, he does talk about touchy subjects, but you guys know me, and you guys know that I have been incorporating those subjects on my channel. And if you personally know me, because I feel like we have built a personal relationship, us that are here, and so I feel like you guys already know me, and you guys know I also have a past, and so it's not what we did right so much, but who we are now. And I think that sometimes we kind of forget that with all the YouTube drama and judging people. But thank you, Carlos. Anyways, so trigger warning, caution.
Experienced some
real life shit here.
Childhood sexual trauma in my youth. So it wasn't the idyllic household that I've always portrayed it to be. So it was completely different from that.
You had a mom and dad, though?
I had a mother and father, very loving, very supportive. Father was born in Clarkdale, Arizona. Mother was born in Jerez, Zacatecas, Mexico. Came to America and achieved the American dream. My dad was an entrepreneur. He owned resin craft decorating industries, a liquor store, commercial real estate. He did well. He did well, and that was a family dream. I mean, his idea was to have us go into the family business, but my brother and I had different aspirations.
Why is it so many young men have these aspirations of getting in a gang? And
I already love what you guys are saying so much. Lakni says, "Thou shalt not judge. We don't have the divine power to do that." Carlos says, "You can take the man out of the street, but you can't take the street out of the man."
I think it's, you know, I think it's fundamentally this. I think that people who join gangs are lacking something in their life. I think that gangs serve a purpose. Jessie Katz from Los Angeles Times said the gangs serve a purpose. They fill a void in people's lives. So there has to be something essentially wrong in your life to seek out the acceptance of dysfunctional individuals. And gangs accept you for your idiosyncrasies. They accept you for your flaws. They applaud your antisocial behavior, and they embrace you. It's unconditional. It's unconditional acceptance. And for an individual who's traumatized through economic disadvantage, through substance abuse, through domestic violence in the family, physical abuse, abandonment, childhood sexual abuse, whatever that etiology is, it drives people to seek out something that they can't find in their family unit. So I think that is the main reason why gangs exist. You know, there's been presidential administrations and gubernatorial administrations that have sought to quell gang violence in urban and suburban areas, and they're not successful because there's one fundamental thing that drives gangs, and it's the need to be accepted. So I think that is the core of gang membership, and you know, a lot of people don't realize that once you get into a gang, it escalates. You continue to participate until you get to a point where you go to prison, because that's the only outcome of gang membership. It's death or prison.
Death or prison is pretty much the only options.
Death or prison, exactly. Abuelita says, I'm happy he chose humanity over prison politics. Everyone deserves a second chance. Exactly. Hey, Alicia, good to see you.
Did you get into it?
My brother was an Artesia gang member, ARTA, A-R-T-A. He was a gang member, and this is a small town adjacent to Cerritos, California, where we lived. And he became an Artesia gang member, and they would come over and party in our garage, smoke marijuana and drink, and they had tattoos. They were cool. They dressed nice. I thought they dressed nice at the time. They wore Pendletons and creased clothes. And they had this magnetism, this allure. These guys that had gotten out of prison, these hardcore thugs, and I wanted that. Like, I wanted what I thought they had was that respect, that charisma. In Spanish, we call it pegue. You know, you have like pull, right? Like you're attractive to the chicks, right? And that's what I wanted. I was just a kid. So I hung out with them, and my brother would run me off, and then I'd always go back, and finally he let me hang out. And then one day, we're walking down the street. My brother's at his girlfriend's house, and I'm with his girlfriend's brother and another homeboy. And they pull me behind a gas station, and they said, we're going to jump you in the hood. And I told them, no, I was afraid. They said, we're going to initiate you. It was called an initiation. And I said, no, I was about 12. But they dragged me behind the gas station and beat me up, made me cry. I mean, I was bawling like a little child, right? I was a child. And they picked me up, they brushed me off. Hey, homeboys don't cry. And that was it. After I was from Artesia. And they told me, don't tell your brother. I didn't tell my brother for a couple of days, and I told him, and he was like, okay, you're in now. And it was something that I did well. I found that I could be a good gang member. I could dedicate myself to this. I belong to something.
And what kind of activities would you get into?
Oh, you name it. We did it, you know.
Is it all about making money?
No, not at the time. Not at the time. I wasn't focused on that. It was more about girls and getting high and showing that I had heart, you know, that I was willing to put in work for the hood. And that's how my early criminal career started. Until later, I started dealing dope, heroin, cannabinol, PCP, marijuana.
The crimes he committed are pretty heinous, but you know.
And I got into that early in life because I watched my brother. I remember I walked into the room one time, and I had an air hockey table. This is when they first came out, and they were selling for the home. And there was a kilo on top of the air hockey table. It was marijuana, and he was breaking it up.
But it was the Mexican Mafia back in the day, and you know how that was very powerful.
And I looked, and I said, oh, okay. And then I remember that after he got finished bagging up all of his weed, I would turn on my air hockey table to play with my other little brother, and marijuana soot and dust would come out of the little holes, right? And I was like, man, this guy kind of ruined my game, you know? But I mean, drugs were like part of my household. You know, I was immersed in it. My brother dealt dope, used dope. And then, it just became part of a money-making venture for me. down the line, I mean, I started dealing dope, and I became good at it until I became addicted, and then I became my own my best client.
How do you transition from just being an Artesia gang to the Mexican Mafia?
That's the thing. I never aspired to be a Mexican Mafia member. I didn't set out and say, you know what, I want to be a carnal. That's what they call members, carnales. I never set out to be that. In fact, I had a cousin. His name was Rene, and he had done time in prison, and he was a righteous soldier for the organization, right? And they called him Turkey from 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆. And he was in prison for murder. He got out. And I asked him about it one day, because we used to work at my dad's factory. My dad and his brothers owned this factory where there's a craft decorating industry, and he was working there with me. So we hung out naturally, my cousin. And he had the allure, he had the look, he was handsome, he had tattoos. So I naturally gravitated towards him. Like, I want to be like this guy. And I remember he used three flowers pomade. And so I went and got some, and I started using that, right? And I wanted to emulate these guys. Everything they did, I wanted to be, right? And I asked him one day, we got our checks on a Friday. We went out, bought some beer, and we're in the car. And I asked him, I says, hey, can you tell me about the Mexican Mafia? And he just looked at me like a deadpan, dead in my eyes, and says, you don't want to know about that. And that's all he ever said. And then I go to prison in 1980. I got arrested in Orange County for some robberies, and they sent me to prison. And it was there that I was immersed in the subculture, because you don't really hear about it at that time on the streets. It was like hushed whispers and undertones, and it was a secretive thing. You weren't even supposed to voice the words the Mexican Mafia in that era. Now it's everywhere. It's on social media. It's people saying this and people saying that. So it's not really that secretive anymore. It's a secret organization, but it's the worst kept secret in California criminal history, because everybody talks about it now. But at that time, it was like, it was not really known. Everybody knew it existed, but nobody knew the inner workings of it, not like today. So when I went to the county jail, I saw somebody who had shot at my house, rivals from Hawaiian Gardens. And I told somebody, say, I want to stab that guy. I want to get him. He shot at my house. And I said, you can't do that. You can't do that, bro. I said, well, what are you talking about? This guy shot at my house. We're rivals. I'm going to whack this guy. Excuse me.
Wow.
And he said, no, you can't. He said, you'll get whacked. So he sat me down and started schooling. He says, look, you're part of the cause now. What they call la causa. That's Spanish for the cause. And he says, now you're a sureño. You're gonna listen to what these guys say, because they run this place. So I said, well, okay, cool. So I tattooed sur on the back of my neck, which has since been removed. I had my tattoos removed. And I started down the path, getting educated about the South Side and sureños, because I was initially just a South Sider. But as I started gravitating towards participation in organizational activities, then I became a sureño. It wasn't until I reached DVI, the Dual Vocational Institution in Tracy, California, that I did my first hit for the organization. And amazingly, it was a guy from Santa Monica.
His first hit.
That I hit. His name was Angel from Santa Monica. I remember my first day on the yard, a guy by the name of Roy Boy Rivas, a well-known Mexican Mafia member, approached me and says, hey, you're boxer? I says, yeah. He says, hey, the carnales want you to do a favor, right? And I knew what that meant immediately. I told him, yeah, I'm down. So he hands me this big knife like this. It was you ever see the paint rollers?
Mm-hmm.
It was the chrome part, right? They cut it off, sharpened it to a pointy end, and wrapped a t-shirt around the end for a handle. So I put it in my waistband, and he says, this other guy is going to go with you, and it's Puppet Martinez from 18th Street. This guy's mythical in his figure, his position in 18th Street, like Papa Martinez. Is a very well-known Mexican Mafia member currently in ADX in Colorado, subjected to SAM's special administrative measures, where they keep the terrorists and all that. It's called ADMAX. So me and this guy, we're kids. We go and he tells me, look, I'm going to walk up behind this guy in the handball court and I'm going to grab him and you just start whacking him. I told him, okay, that was the plan. So first day in the yard, I go out there. I'm a little nervous. I'm a little scared. They got guns. You know, the gunners, they have real guns, Ruger 223s, the Mini 14, and they will shoot you. So he goes and he grabs this guy and I just start whacking him. Boom, 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 and it's done. You know, my first hit. And after that, it was fast track. I was off to the races. Like we were doing hits every day in DBI. And
so this is all in prison.
This is all in prison, yeah. This is where I got my introduction to the organization, you know, in retrospect. And I want to point something out that I don't speak about this in braggadocio in a sense of pride or I'm glorifying, because there's nothing glorious about the organization or honorable about what I did. I think that one of the most important things that I would like to relay is that I am remorseful for what I've done. Not everything. I'd be a darn
wow, that's real. That's deep.
liar if I said that I was remorseful for everything, but you know, I hurt a lot of people, and I don't want to sit here and have anybody, particularly the surviving family members of some of my victims, think that I'm glorifying my past, because you know, unfortunately, a lot of people got hurt, not just the victims themselves, and I'm cognizant of that, and I want to point that out immediately. But that was my introduction to the organization.
No, you were how old at the time?
I was about 20 years old when I did my first hit. I was a young buck.
Do you guys like trip out on this stuff? Because I'm tripping over here. I'm like, hit, killing people, 20.
Full of piss and vinegar. I wasn't angry at the world. I was a happy-go-lucky guy, easy to get along with, and I just wanted to fit in again. And that was the pattern my whole life, wanting the acceptance, a people pleaser. And when you look at it, when you really, I mean, when you analyze it and you take it down to its nuts and bolts, it's to the granular level, you see that most gang members are people pleasers. They want to have people agree with them and accept them, and they'll do anything for that acceptance. And I was willing to kill for it. That's just the unfortunate, sad truth about my entire life, is that I was willing to kill for acceptance.
Wow.
And it wasn't until years later that somebody told me, ex-girl that I had, said, how could you be so fucking stupid to kill people for people that want to kill you? And it was like a light bulb went off, an epifocal moment. I said, what the hell am I doing? What am I doing? But it took years of therapy and stuff for me to finally break it down and understand it. But I understand that now, you know, that I was chasing a brass ring that wasn't there. You know, I thought that the organization made me special, that I was like a Superman. I had these superpowers, and you really do. I mean, it's an awesome responsibility to hold life and death in your hands and say, yeah, whack that guy, or don't whack that guy, or yeah, give me that free money, you know, and go extort that guy and take his SUV or whatever, right? That's intoxicating, that kind of power. It really is. It's alluring, you know, for somebody to say, nah, I don't want that. Once you get it, it's addicting, you know. It's very, like I said, intoxicating. But for all that, you know, there's so much negative behind it. You know, there's so many consequences that come. Like your life's over, literally. Your life is literally over when you commit to the organization. And I'm not here to badmouth the organization. I'm really not. That's not what I'm here to do. You know, I have quite a bit of empathy and still feeling for some of the individuals in the organization that were my friends. I don't sympathize with them anymore. I'm obviously on the other side of the fence.
clearly I've never been a gangster, but I do have family members in the past. Some ex-gang members do turn up to normalize humans after a while. Not all are bad forever. Yeah, exactly, Evie. That's where I was going with this. I'm like, this is wild to hear, you know, unaliving people. And he's in the Mexican Mafia, which is, you know, back then, like he said, it's very powerful.
But I wish that they could live a day of life free, you know, just to breathe free air, just to walk in a place where you see nothing but color and hear voices and hear babies crying and feel the touch of a woman, and smell her hair. And you walk by a grocery store or a shopping mall and you smell perfume from a woman, or eat a good meal. I wish that those guys could experience that. Or the simple peace of being in peace. You know, it's a powerful thing when you could sit back and say, I'm finally at peace. I found my spot. I think that's important. And if they could experience that, I think that they would go out in droves. They would leave like, I'm done with this, you know? I just think that's all they know, that they're still chasing that breast ring. They think that.
My question is, how do you unalive someone? And I'm curious what that feeling is like now. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, I know he's remorseful, he's changed, but you know, how do you like unalive someone, and how do you keep that, I guess, out of your head? Survival. If that makes any sense.
They've arrived, but their trip's already over. You know, it's a harsh reality that a lot of them may never realize. And I feel sorry for that, for those men, that there is an alternative. You know, it doesn't have to be violence, and you don't have to do what I did. You know, you don't have to go the route that I did, becoming an expert witness and working for law enforcement. You don't have to do that. You could just do what you do, but live life free of violence, free of hatred, free of the vinegar that runs through your veins when you're involved in that, because it's a really cruel, harsh, and brutal lifestyle. And I lived it 20 years, and it's had its impact on me, as I'm sure it's impacting them.
That hit that you just described a little while ago, that was something you got convicted of in prison?
No, never convicted of it.
You never get convicted in prison?
Back then, it was like, they'd pick up the body, they'd pick up the knife, and it's like, play ball. Go ahead, resume normal activities. It wasn't like today. Like today, if there's a hit in the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, it gets locked down. They seal off the crime scene. It's like a real crime scene now. They've advanced in their investigative technique, and their evidence processing has become refined with the objective of ultimately a prosecution in the future, right? But back then,
you know, he deals with like PTSD and stuff now too. So he's mentioned it before. I don't know if he mentions it in this interview, but he does talk about it.
And it was like, pick up the knife, throw it in the trash, get the body, throw it on the meat wagon, and let's go. And it didn't really impact anybody. You know, back then you could do a hit and you only lost 45 days good time credit. And then you could do a hit and get away with it. Now that's an impossibility. They have these things called 1030s in the Department of Corrections where people drop anonymous notes. And it's like the thing in prison, like everybody's dropping notes on everybody. Even the actors do it. You know, they drop kites on people. It's just a way of life in prison. You know,
this was back in the day too. So things are very different. Carlos says, good to see you, Shay. We love having you here. They have no choice. You follow orders, or it's him or his family outside. Exactly. Abuelita says there weren't many working cameras and lots of blind spots.
Performance everywhere, but back then it was these were the gladiator days. In fact, they called the Dual Vocational Institution the Gladiator School because you went there and you were going to gauge some warfare. You know, I was a little apprehensive, you know, but after that first day, I was like, man, this is butter. This is easy, you know. And then I started doing hits for the organization.
Did you ever get convicted of other murders?
I was convicted of 2 murders. of the murder of
2 murders?
a Mexican mafia member and the wife of a Mexican mafia member's brother. I was convicted of those 2 murders.
Are these murders where you were asked to do it?
I was asked. Well, one was a Mexican mafia member by the name of 𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍. He had fallen into disfavor with the organization. And I got a phone call from Benjamin Peters that asked me to take care of this guy, that he had to go. He was on the lista.
I'm really not that surprised. I mean, it's the Mexican mafia, right?
Hit list, right? And I said, yeah, I'll take care of it. And lo and behold, this guy shows up at a dope house I'm running one day, trying to extort the drug dealers that I'm controlling. So we bring him into the house, and I welcome him. Hey, brother, how you doing? And, you know, we start talking politics, and I talk to another deceased Mexican mafia member, 𝗝cie𝗶𝗆, and I tell him, hey, go fix him a hot shot. And he fixed him a hot shot, and we injected him. He overdosed. We put him in a car.
What? They injected him? I've heard this before, but it's been a while. I'm rewinding.
Welcome him. Hey, brother, how you doing? And, you know, we start talking politics, and I talk to another deceased Mexican mafia member, 𝗝cie𝗶𝗆, and I tell him, hey, go fix him a hot shot. And he fixed him a hot shot, and we injected him. He overdosed. We put him in a car, took him to an alley, and shot him to death. Just to be sure, we were fairly certain that he was deceased after the hot shot, but just to make certain, we shot him. And the other one was a woman who was the wife of a Mexican mafia associate. Her brother-in-law was a Mexican mafia member. I ordered her death. I didn't do that personally, but I ordered her death. Out of respect for the family, I'll refrain from naming her. But yeah, I was convicted of 2 murders. I served 32 years, 6 months and 4 days for that sentence.
32 years.
So once you were working with the Mexican mafia, then the games, the things you're getting into become much higher.
Exponentially heavier. Exponentially. You know, it's
you were in the minor leagues before that.
Yeah, I was minor league before that. That was like doing hits and running yards. That's part of the grooming process, your educational process, if you will. Once you're a made guy, it gets significantly more dangerous. You know, you think that, oh, I'm made now, nobody can touch me. But it's not the external factor that you have to worry about. It's the internal politics that get you. You know, and I learned early on that it wasn't what I thought, because I thought it was silk suits and limousines. You know, I thought, oh, mobster, you know, it's everything on a silver platter now, you know. But it wasn't that way. It was not that way. When I got in, like, there were guys with holes in their shoes and no money on their books and struggling to get a TV, because we were allowed TVs in prison. It was disillusioning, really. I was dismayed that the Mexican mafia, for all its ferocity and might and reputation, didn't really have a financial objective, other than the few members that extorted people and dealt dope. That was the whole goal of the organization. It's like, we kill for the glory of killing, and you can't use the Mexican mafia's name to make money. And that's what it was. But as time went on, some of the mustache Pete's fell away, and we came into power. The younger guys, the Pepsi generation is what they called us. I don't know who called us that, but it stuck. You know, because remember the commercials of Pepsi generation? That's where we all got made. There was about 20 of us that got made in Folsom. And in San Quentin, there was about 5 or 10 that got made there. So this is a big wave of induction. And it was us that brought about this change in the organization. You know, first was stopping the drive-bys, and then the horizontal integration of the mob from prison into the street gang subculture, where we appointed reps in each gang to communicate with us, like acting as a conduit. And and to collect for us, collect illicit monies that were generated in each gang. I mean, that was like a pivotal moment for the organization back in '92. But I mean, I want to dispel some of the myths that are out there too, that I was the one that organized it. I just played a part in it. Like there was 𝗝liche Aguirre, Raymond 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, my own 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 There were a lot of brothers on the streets at the time, and I played a part in the concept of it and enforcing in the county jail when I was housed in the county jail. For anybody who violated the edict of stopping the drive-bys, I would have them whacked in the county jail. And it worked. It's still in effect today. There are no peace treaties, really. I mean, people violate this rule all the time. And you know, if you violate the rules, it's become a financial opportunity for the organization with the threat of, we will put you on the green light list if you don't pay. So that's a common practice now. But I mean, we're talking, yeah, my involvement in organized crime, true organized crime, really began then, because I started organizing crews on the streets. I started, you know, franchising, if you will, licensing my name to drug dealers. They would pay me a specific amount of money every month to fall beneath my umbrage. So they were part of my crew. Nobody can go and extort them, rob them. If enforcement was needed, that was available. You know, it just was just eye-opening for me. And I saw the potential. We saw the potential. I remember when I first got in the organization, we attempted to collect commissary items from inmates in the SHU, the security housing unit where we're at. And we tell them, hey, just kick in a little bit when people come in. And it was truly for this purpose, for taking care of the individuals who came into the SHU who had nothing. We'd send them care packages, coffee, tobacco, hygiene items, comfort items like comfort food. And we'd have all that stuff stored up. So we got it going, and we did it for a month or two. And then there was a 𝗏𝗍𝗏, a Mexican national, who was a friend of Joe Morgan. It was me, David Galvedon, Mariano Martinez, and I think there was another member. We were doing this. We were collecting all these commissary items, and we had them. We weren't eating them ourselves. We were saving them for everybody. And it wasn't to gain financial, it wasn't a financial gain for us. It was more in the interest of everybody, all the Sureños coming into the SHU. But this 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, this Mexican national, went out to the yard and told Joe Morgan. You know, Joe Morgan, a lot of people called him Peg Leg, but we never called him that. And he hated that name. Nobody ever called him that to his face. And I'm only referring to him in that sense because everybody knows him as Joe Peg Leg Morgan, right? But this Mexican national goes out and tells him, hey, these guys are extorting me. And don't you know we got dressed down out there? Joe Morgan, Black Umbrella, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, like the titans in the organization.
Yeah, they blur his face out in interviews, but I've heard, I think he said that he looks different, and, you know, I'm sure it is a risk, though.
It's out there in a little circle, and Joe Morgan's yelling at us.
He was the leader of the Mexican mafia. He wasn't like the ice cream truck driver, you know? Like, it was a big deal.
And I could
Not
tell
that there's anything wrong with the ice cream truck driver.
That Black Umbrella and
people know
𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 aren't in a total agreement with this guy belittling us. But Joe Morgan belittled us, yelling at us, who do you think you are? This isn't a charity. You don't use the organization to make money. And all the time in the back of my head, I'm thinking,
that would be a good question. I've heard that there really isn't a way out. Yeah, and how does he deal with that, you know?
Well, what's the organization for then if we're not about money? And from that day forward, I disliked Joe Morgan. I despised the man. I despised him. Like, I thought he was arrogant, that he put himself in this position of Godfather, and nobody ever called him Godfather. That was just not the case. If he would have referred to himself that, he would have got whacked. I mean, he was a well-respected member. Like many other carnales were well-respected, but I did not like him. I did not feel like he was my brother. There were people that
he wasn't even Mexican.
He wasn't even Mexican, but that wasn't it. Because Raymond 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is Native American, and I think he's Polish. Polish.
Cactus says he wasn't the leader of it. I thought 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆. I thought he was the leader, but that would be something. I'll look it up, Cactus. You might know more than me, Cactus, too. Hi, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. Good to see you, love.
Polish and Native American, but he's Caucasian and Native American. He's not even Mexican. My sponsor, 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆, Sloppy from Clanton, he was a Mohawk Indian. 𝗝ecie Sagato was Samoan. I mean, this is an eclectic mix of ethnicities. So when you hear Mexican Mafia, it's kind of like a misnomer, right? There's people from every walk of life in the organization. But I don't believe that there's ever been an African American in the Mexican Mafia. But every other, including Japanese, 𝗝𝗏𝗆 Mike. There were a lot of guys that had other than Mexican heritage that were the gang membership. But I remember from that day, I disliked Joe Morgan. I thought that he belittled us for no reason when we were trying to do something good. I mean, it wasn't for self-interest that we were doing. It was for the good of everybody. But we didn't get a chance to explain that. And then I just never felt close to him after that. I never felt close to him. I never tried to get close to him because everybody was bootlicking that guy, you know? Everybody wanted to be Joe's friend. And I think maybe that put a sense of that godfather role in everybody else's mind, but it was never in my mind.
Is the Mexican Mafia bigger in prison or bigger on the streets?
It's not big at all.
Hmm.
People think that it's this monolithic organization, right? That's huge. You know, it's only about 140 guys in the entire United States.
Really?
Really. You know, you got about 70 in the state and you got about 60 in the feds. And that's a liberal estimate, right? I'm going to be liberal. Say 150 just to be safe, right? But in reality, the Mexican Mafia, 99.9% of it is incarcerated in supermax prison serving life sentences.
Really?
Really.
Law enforcement's doing a good job.
Doing a great job. Doing a great job.
Yeah.
The Mexican Mafia is in your communities in street gangs. That's the infrastructure of the organization. If you think of this in terms of neurology, that's the cerebral cortex, the organization, right? And the exoskeletal structure and nervous system are the street gangs.
He's so smart. I wouldn't even think he was like a gangster.
The cerebral cortex couldn't
it.
function without the exoskeletal structure and the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system that the gangs provide. So the real power is the street gangs. I've always said that without Sureños, Southsiders, and street gangs, the Hispanic gang community, the Mexican Mafia doesn't exist. It truly doesn't. I've always thought that at some point, somebody would say, we're not going to do this for a bunch of dope fiends up in prison. Why are we paying them money? There's only about 150 of them. And there's 150,000 of us. We have the guns, the money, and the dope. And I'm not trying to plant a seed or anything. That's just a reality that the Hispanic street gangs are far stronger than the Mexican Mafia. The Mexican Mafia controls its locus of power, prisons and jails, right? Street gangs control the community. The power's not in there, it's here. It's here in the streets, right? Whatever community, Houston, Texas, Southwest United States, California, Washington, Oregon. Because if you also think about this like oncology, right? Think about the organization as a gross metastasis, right? It's this malignancy. It's a tumor. And it's metastasized throughout the United States now with federal indictments. Mexican Mafia members are spread throughout the United States with gang members immigrating to different countries. You have Sureño gangs everywhere. Everywhere. New York, Washington, Virginia, Oregon, you name it, they're there. And the Mexican Mafia is following these gangs and getting a toehold into these communities. But again, without these gangs carrying out the edicts and desires of the organization, the Mexican Mafia doesn't exist to controlling a prison yard.
what's the relationship like with the Mexican mafia and the cartels?
Ooh.
It's healthy. But there's a common principle that the cartels don't push cartel politics in California, and mobsters don't push mafia politics in Mexico. There's been a number of Mexican mafia members that have been executed in Mexico as a result of their participation with the cartels over there. A number of Mexican mafia members. And those relationships flourish today. Mexican mafia members receive vast amounts of dope. They provide specific services for plazas there and work with specific cartels, a number of cartels. But this has been going on for a long time, since the early 60s, when 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 established ties to the Juarez cartel. And then Joe Morgan had ties with the Araujo brothers in Tijuana, the then Tijuana cartel. And then one of the recent passes, Bat Marquez and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Barron with the Adriano Felix cartel. I have graphics of Mexican mafia members with cartel members currently in the BOP. So every time they indict, the United States indicts a cartel member and brings him to the United States, where does he go? He goes to prison. And who's in prison? The Mexican mafia. Who controls that prison? The Mexican mafia. So who controls these guys? The Mexican mafia. But I think it's a symbiotic relationship. I think if you look at it from just a business perspective, rather than going and saying, give me $100,000 or we're going to whack you, or pay me $10,000 a month or we're going to whack you. I would approach it this way, like, let us do business with you. Allow us to enforce for you. We'll afford you market exclusivity. You want California, you got California. Every gang territory there is yours. Anybody messes with you, all you guys in prison, all of you guys are going to have a voice in what happens to you during your stay in prison. If collections are needed, we'll collect. If enforcement is needed, we'll whack people for you. I mean, that's a savvy move. And for a $4 billion a year industry, these guys are sitting on billions of dollars, right? That's a pittance. It's like insurance, like, oh yeah. In fact, the cartels look down on gang members. They look down on some Mexican mafia members. They call them pelones, the bald-headed ones, right? And they call them plásticos. They're plastic because they're not born in Mexico, right? But they are useful to the organization, to the cartels themselves. I mean, look at, that's a huge organization. And it's a powerful organization. The Mexican mafia is powerful in some respects, right? But it's not that big. It can grow exponentially, but it will never happen. There's always been this exclusivity and elitism in the organization. It's always been small, so it's always going to remain small. And then there's a high rate of attrition in the organization. You know, very few people die natural deaths in the mob. It's just the nature of the beast. You know, and I don't mean to be glib about it, but it's just, people get whacked. People drop out.
Wow.
People take the alternative path like I took, right? And there's just not a lot.
I guess, would you do the same thing he did? Would you take the path of getting out and becoming an informant?
A lot of longevity in the organization.
Or no?
For those very few that make it to the end of their respective rainbows as full-fledged members, well, hats off to them. You know, if that's your goal in life, then knock yourself out, bro. But that's not my goal in life.
Tell me what caused you to become an informant.
I never aspired to be an informant. I never wanted to be. In fact, I remember the first time I sat down to debrief, they started asking me questions and I just welled up in tears, right? It was just like, here I am, I'm a rat.
We've heard of others debriefing as well, right?
You know, I'm a rat. I'm violating everything I was ever raised to. I'm violating that. I'm violating that rule.
I don't know.
And I never anticipated testifying in court. And, but the very nature of divesting yourself from membership is a debrief process, right? Where you have to, I think that's been abolished now in the Department of Corrections, debriefing, particularly as a means of getting out of the shoe. And I didn't do it to get out of the shoe. That's one of the misconceptions. I did it to get out of the shoe. The shoe broke me. That didn't break me. Politics broke me. I just got tired, and I was afraid. Quite frankly, I was afraid. I'm not ashamed to say that now.
Wow.
You know, before I was like, no, I wasn't afraid. I was scared to death. My God, every day, I was having anxiety attacks, and I
Like, look at him in this picture, and then freaking in that suit.
didn't even know what they were, you know. But I was afraid. I think that's the harsh reality of it. I lost my edge. I didn't have it anymore, you know, and I was okay with leaving. After a while, at first it broke me though. I mean, psychologically, emotionally, I was a wreck.
What kind of things go through your head?
First thing, I wanted to go back. Like, no, I can win this battle. I want to put me back. You know, I don't want to be a rat. I don't want to be a PC. This is too late. We already moved your.
These pictures are insane. And Richie says, I'm Italian, Russian, and Greek. Snitching would get you banned from your own family. So you would just pick to die in prison?
Stuff. So they have you go through this.
Here in these pictures, yeah, he looks like a gangster, especially in that one.
And I was okay with leaving. After a while, at first it broke me though. I mean, psychologically, emotionally, I was a wreck.
What kind of things go through your?
I go back. Like, no, I can win this battle. I want to put me back.
Whoa.
You know, I don't want to be a rat. I don't want to be a PC. This is too late. We already moved your stuff. So they have you go through this debriefing process, right? You divulge everything, everybody. You vomit it out. Boom.
He's very good looking.
Right, and they fact check. It takes about 2 years to do your debrief, right?
Wow.
And I was debriefing for FBI, sheriffs, LAPD, and the CDC at the same time. And then
Chet.
They sent a Learjet and they flew me out. They flew me out to an undisclosed location. And they housed me for about 13 months, not in the CDC. And it was there that they told me, you could change lives. You could save lives. If you could just reach one person and change that life, that it's all worthwhile. And at first it was all about me. I was special. I had that narcissistic streak. Oh man, I'm getting special treatment. I'm getting privileges, and you know, I mean, something beyond what prison was, right? But it was all about my own narcissism at first. I wanted to retain. I was a special guy in the mob with all this superpower, but it's gone now. So I got to get this special super supply somewhere, you know? So it was this informant thing, right? And I didn't like it. I despised it. I despised the word informant.
Yes, Evie, like witness protection.
Right? But I'm okay with it. You know, I was a paid informant.
People like in the comments, you'll see a million.
Oh yeah, rat. Yeah.
Sammy the Bull gets the same thing.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
But I don't think when you're faced with the options that you're given.
Oh yeah,
I would love to see somebody else say,
it's an easy choice.
I'm not going to be a rat.
Yeah, it's an easy choice.
Good luck with that.
I think when anybody's faced with their own mortality and really the options that you have at the end of that one perspective rainbow, I'm loath to call it a rainbow because it's not a rainbow, you know. The options are very dismal.
And the shoe is one of the most depressing places on earth.
It is, but it's actually, if you adapt, you acclimate really quickly, right? You get your routine, you work out, you study in college, you read books, you do your crossword puzzles and write letters, and it's a very mundane existence. But some people thrive there. But I never
very intelligent.
Anticipated being this informant. You know, I talked to some guys and some meaningful people that became meaningful in my life. Asked me to do some videos for kids, right? And I did it, you know, and then I did the book, and then we started receiving feedback. We did the Black Hand, Chris Blatchford and I, and we started receiving feedback. Like, man, this book changed my life. I changed the course of my life because of this book. And I saw your video on YouTube, and I've never put a video up on YouTube. All those videos out there are leaked video from opportunistic individuals who just jumped on it, right?
Yeah, I believe legit. I think he's only done Soft White Underbelly and Hector Bravo. And Hector Bravo is also a friend of the channel. His book is really good. Would you guys want me to do bedtime stories with you guys?
And God bless him. You know, God bless them. I'm not resentful behind that at all.
Really good.
I've recently put a video out, and it was just to test the waters, and I don't think that's really my realm. You know, that's
Not if you can't show your face.
yeah. Well, yeah, I'm not going to show my face. My appearance is significantly different.
Oh, there you go.
Tattoos are gone. So, you know,
We read
why would I?
we read the Bb Koberger book. Remember, I read to you guys. Oh yeah, Melly. Okay. We're starting Kenzie text tomorrow, but we can incorporate this into bedtime stories. Oh, you guys want to go to bedtime?
Put my face out there. You know, why would I do that? I don't think there's any amount of money in the world, unless it's life-altering money, that I would do it.
Well, it could be a book deal, it could be a movie, it could be anything.
Could be. I mean, if it's significant, yeah, then I'm off to Europe. You know, I'm off to Europe. But these individuals had an impact in my life. You know, they're good men, and I began to realize they weren't my enemy. Cops, I'm talking about prosecutors and DA investigators and corrections officials, and some of them became truly significant friends, and are still my friends today. We, you know, when I'm in town, we'll go to dinner, or if they're out my way, we go out, have a good time. I see them at the training seminars and in court when I'm brought in for court. You know, and they've had an impact. And I think that from each one, I've taken a bit of their tile, like a mosaic, right? Taken a bit from each one, like life lessons. And they contributed to creating the man that I am today. So it's truly significant to say that they are responsible for the man I become, as well as other significant people in my life. And I don't feel the repugnance of that word anymore, informant or witness or rat. I mean, I am a paid expert witness. That's what I do. I work at the request of the government on any given case at any given time. I have no skin in the matter. I have no dog in the fight. But there's a caveat that they disclose all the information that I glean from what they have me evaluate to the prosecution, just as the prosecution does it to the defense. That's it. I'm not going to lie for anybody, not for
This is really intense. Evie says real men can wear pink. I love it. I do too, Evie.
Any amount of money. You know, I finally regained my humanity and my integrity. And I'm not going to impugn that for anybody. I'm not. There's no money that's going to say, hey, lie for me. I'm not going to do that.
You've transformed yourself.
You know, I think that God had a lot to do with it. You know, there's purposes that you go through things. I think that everything has a purpose in your life, right? And I think the Lord had a lot to do with that. I'm not a church attending Christian. You know, we go to church once in a while. But again, my religion is my religion. You know, I'm not knocking anybody that gets on here and testifies about their ministry, but I'm just not going to do that. You know, I think that some things are private, and that's private. But I am a believer. I am a true believer. I believe that the way I got out of prison was simply a miracle. After 5
Hi, prison guard. Good to see you.
5 grants and reversals, and then finally the courts rule on my behalf, and the governor lets me go on an en banc hearing. That's a miracle. I was the guy that was supposed to die in prison. I was the poster child for that guy should never see daylight. You know, so I'm thankful.
How do they approach you?
Man, or die in prison or become an informant. I believe now he's in his 60s, not sure.
With this offer?
It wasn't an offer. We filed a writ of
Do the math.
habeas corpus in Los Angeles Superior Court, and in front of a judge that hears all habeas corpuses from California prisoners for this district, who, I might add, had denied 2 of my writs in the past after I received parole grants. But after each denial and reversal from the governor, I'd look at the reversal and I'd start plugging those holes. I lack insight. So Governor Jerry Brown says, why did he go on to participate in such brutal violence? So I talked to my then wife at the time.
We have prison guard in here, and prison guard, I said earlier, HB Hector Bravo has an interviews with Rene too, that are really good. So you guys can check them out.
I said, I'm going to tell them about the sexual abuse in my life, that was a causative factor in my seeking out the acceptance of gangs and all that, right?
And I say
And I
that
knew
as in their legitimate source, soft white underbelly and that prison guard.
it was going to hit the news. I knew it was going to hit the news. And I was like, man, I don't want to do this. I didn't even tell my family, you know? So I set about doing that. And I addressed a lot of the therapy. I attended therapy and, you know, I gained insight. I was able to articulate adequately to the boards that I realized my behavior was dysfunctional. I accepted responsibility for it. I showed remorse for my victims. And I had made significant gains in rehabilitation. So we finally, after the 5th denial, I contacted an organization known as the Prison Law Office, very powerful group up in San Francisco. They have the most wins against the governor and the state of California in litigation. And they agreed to represent me. And we established a formidable team of individuals. 𝗝𝗶𝗆𝗆 was my attorney. He had never filed a writ before in his life. And he filed this writ with the assistance of Laura Shepard, who was my parole attorney at the time. And it was a humdinger. The judge granted every issue that we had put forth in the writ. And 𝗝𝗆𝗆𝗆 was this guy that just had never done a writ. And I remember one day they called me to the gang investigators. I had a good rapport at every prison I was at with the gang investigators, right? Obviously, I was protected in SNY and a PCR, so they brought me in for a number of reasons, right? This was for a case. And I was there, and we're talking about this case. I made a phone call to a district attorney. I spoke to the district attorney. And then the investigator says, hey, you have an important phone call. They've approved it. You're going to get it right now. So they make the phone call, and I get on the phone. It's 𝗝𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆. He says, Rene. And I says, yes. He says, congratulations. You're going home.
Wow. Oh, wow. He gets emotional. I'm going to get emotional.
I'm sorry. It's still.
Alicia, I love your comment. He's pretty hot. Talk about living on the edge. Dude, not a real gangster wearing pink and crying on camera on soft white underbelly. Oh, we love.
Very emotional. It's like a miracle.
He is a babelet, by the way.
I remember he said, Rene, congratulations, you're going home. And I had the same reaction. I said, no. He says, yeah, they asked for an extension. The judge granted your writ, but the governor's going to appeal it. And I said, oh, man. Okay. So during that process, I had another hearing scheduled for parole, and everybody said to postpone it, just wait for the outcome of the writ. They're going to grant it in your favor. And I said, no, let's go. Let's get that 6th win. Let's enhance it for the next writ in case we lose this writ, right? I'm on a legal battle now. And I go to the hearing, and it goes all sideways. I get a commissioner who's, quite frankly, not the kindest individual in the world. And I'll leave it at that. His name was Robert Barton, I believe his name was. Former prosecutor for Kern County District Attorney's Office. And he took me through the ringer, put me under investigation, stopped the hearing. And I thought, oh my God, 12 years of work down the drain because I elected to go to this hearing. Well, I passed. I participated in the investigation. No wrongdoing found. Strong opposition from the victims' families, which I understand completely. And, you know, we prevailed. And during that time, while waiting 6 months for the investigation to be resolved and going to the hearing, they grant my parole. The same
prison guard in the chat is also on soft white underbelly. It's amazing. I love soft white underbelly.
Commissioner Barton grants my parole after berating me again in the second hearing. So I'm like, I'm mystified. Like, why did he do that? Why did he put me through that? You know? And during that process, they usually wait 120 days, 150 days, actually. The BPH, the Board of Prison Hearings, has 120 days to evaluate your finding of suitability for parole. Then it's kicked over to the gubernatorial review panel. And the governor has 30 days after the 120 days to make a determination to modify the finding, to take no action, to send it en banc or reverse. He has 4 actions, and only one takes your parole away, and that's reversal. He's done reversal every time. So I'm waiting for that. Every year I had gotten parole, they'd call me up, and the warden would come in and give me the reversal letter, say, hey, bad luck, Rene. The governor reverses, said, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job.
Wow.
And it got to the point where I despised being called to the captain's office, especially around that time when I'm waiting for the parole decision, because it's going to be bad news. It's going to be a reversal. So I steal my then wife. Expect a reversal. Expect a reversal. We're getting reversed. We got to go to court. We got to go to court. We're going to win it in court. We're not going to win it here. And I'm waiting. It's about the 140th day. And it's count time. I'm at Ironwood State Prison, and the door rack's open. Pow! And lieutenant's walking forward with the letter. I see it. I see the governor's seal on it. I said, motherfucker, another reversal. And he hands it to me. He says, congratulations. And I said, it's a reversal? He says, yeah. I said, yeah, that's what I expected. And I look at it, and it says en banc hearing. Because of the complex legal issues and the historic past of grants, and that the governor's going to send it to an en banc hearing. And I knew right then, I said, oh my God, I'm going home.
Wow.
So I go to the en banc hearing. 13 commissioners had granted my parole in the past. So many of those people are still sitting in that panel that granted my parole in the past. I knew it was a lock. And then they granted it. And it was a 30-day process, and I was waiting. I was like, wow. It was surreal. It's still surreal that I'm sitting here. Like I told you, I was the poster child for dying in prison. You know, I was the guy that was supposed to die in prison. And, you know, I think that was a miracle from the Lord. All those stars and planets aligning and everything that occurred and the people that came in support, I think it was all divine. It wasn't just because I was an articulate guy and I plugged all the holes and I rehabilitated myself. No, I refuse to believe that. I can't believe it.
I agree with him.
Tell me what witness protection is like.
Stringent, but what's the alternative, right? I'm okay with it.
You've relocated.
I relocated. I've started a new life, and I'm happy. You know, in recovery, they teach you about triggers, right? They teach you about triggers, like external triggers, internal triggers, things that might set you off towards anger, towards relapse, towards this 12-step program for everything, right? Which I think is, I'm not really a buyer, right? I'm not a buyer. When I stopped, I just stopped like this. Like, this is it. I'm done. You know, it's been 18 years. And I've never been happier in my life.
You've never been happy?
No, I'm happy now. But I've never been happier in my life, right?
Wow.
That's great.
Sobriety brings clarity. Simply that. But they teach you about these triggers. Well, I was reading. I'm a voracious reader. And I read about glimmers. It's the opposite of a trigger, right? Things that bring you joy and peace and tranquility, right? And where I live, it's kind of rustic, right? Trees. I went down the street with a bunch of trees. It was in the fall. And I was driving. I was going to get something to eat. And all of a sudden, a gust of wind came and all these autumn leaves were falling. It was picturesque, like something you see in a romance novel, right? It just put a lump in my throat.
Wow. Wow.
because you don't see that in prison. And I stopped and I said, this is a glimmer. This is a glimmer. And you don't get more peaceful than that. Every day I look for a glimmer. And I find it in the smallest thing. You know, I got some dogs. I got a 𝗠𝗲𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 and a Belgian 𝗝𝗏𝗆𝗆. Beautiful animals. And every day they provide glimmers to me, right? They love me unconditionally. I like dogs more than people. They're loyal unconditionally. They'll die for you.
Me too.
You know, and that's my peace, right? Just little things. Antiquing. I go antiquing. Who would figure an ex-mob guy loves antiquing, right? I love going to yard sales and junk yards and junk shops and just finding the little treasure, right? Oh man, that's cool. I know what that is. You know, I'm gonna do that.
32 years doing time.
If I'm doing it. And it's the simplicity. I think the simplicity. And I used to think that gangster was being a gangster. That was gangster, right? But I found that real gangsters, those are the guys that get up and work at 5 a.m. and work 2 jobs to put food on their table and pay for their kids' clothes. You know, that's gangster. Living a normal life and respecting other people's rights. That's gangster. You know, that's real because it's hard. It's hard to pay bills. It's hard to live, but it's freedom. You know, and I won't relinquish it for anything. I'm never going back. You know, and if I die tomorrow, I'm okay with that. I'm okay. Say they find me in suburbia somewhere, or my little urban spot, right? And somebody comes and puts a pill in me, right? And it's over. News, Rene Enriquez murdered, right? I'm okay with that.
Wow.
I'm free. I lived life. I got to breathe free air. And I'm happy for what I did. I have no remorse for what I've done. I don't feel bad for the guys that went to prison. I mean, they committed the crimes. They put themselves in prison. I didn't put them in prison. I just interpreted their communications. But, you know, I'm happy. I have a legit source of income. I work for the government at times, and I'm okay with that. You know, I'm happy with the transition that my life has taken. I'm happy with my decisions. Am I concerned? Not overly so. I'm cognizant there's a threat, you know, and I understand that will always be, and I accept that. But I'm happy with what I did. I'm a happy man today.
Okay, I want to play, we're going to listen to the rest of it. I want to play a 9-minute clip of when he was like back in the day in prison, and then we'll finish the interview. I'm obsessed. Are you obsessed? I hope so. I hope you are. Let me see. This will be interesting.
I have been involved in organized crime for 20 years, and I've been a Mexican Mafia member for over 17 years.
In 2003, Rene Enriquez defected from the Mexican Mafia. As a senior leader in the organization, he had much to offer the authorities. His debriefings with officials were videotaped. Here are experts from one tape.
The structure of the Mexican Mafia is comprised of 3 components. The members. There are about 100 members in the United States, including the federal prisons, Arizona state prisons, California state prisons, and members in society. It's a small group, but it's very powerful. The members believe in a contractionary philosophy. Fewer members, bigger pieces of the pie. That's why there's so few numbers. There are also the 𝗝𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, who are next in the descending rung of power and importance in the organization. The 𝗝𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏s are the soldiers, the backbone.
Yeah, this is when he was in prison, and he is not blurred here. This is what he looked like. I think this is what he must have been like 40 here. Don't know.
The doers in the organization, they comprise the crews, the mesas, which are controlling boards on the main lines, which control prison main lines.
they pretty much effectuate most of Mexican Mafia activity in society and in prisons. And then there are the sureños. What the EME considers sureños are anybody from Southern California who is Hispanic or part of a street gang or illicit type activities. It can also encompass individuals that come into prison from Southern California. They're considered sureños as well. But those are the three components of the organization. Each individual has a specific crew. He has an individual that visits him, and he communicates with that individual, his wife, his girlfriend, his friend, and they have a specific established code. Say, for instance, I understand that 𝗏𝗏𝗵𝗶𝗽 listens to my visiting tapes. And say, for example, you're
says I would be the side piece. I'm dead.
my visitor. Understanding that an individual is monitoring and taping my
I'm so glad you guys like this. We'll finish the interview. It gets good, and I love this. I love
conversations. Through past indictments, we understand every monitoring and surveillance technique utilized by 𝗏𝗏𝗵𝗶𝗽. We understand completely what 𝗏𝗏𝗵𝗶𝗽 is capable of, and it's not very much. Say, for example, that you were my visitor, and I needed to talk about a crew member paying a specific amount of money. I'd say, how's everything?
Here he looks like, you know, all gangstered out and whatnot. And then in the interview, he's like wearing pink, a suit.
At home, you would tell me, everything's fine. Joe came by last month and he helped me in the garden. He planted 4 rose bushes, and he says he'll come back every month to help me maintain the yard. To the individual monitoring this tape, it sounds like Joe came by and helped my wife do gardening in the front yard and planted some rose bushes. To me, I understand this to be that Joe came by and paid me $400 last month, and he says he's going to be by every month to pay $400 and to help around with the crew. So it becomes esoteric to the individual layman who's listening to this tape. But for the insider, I understand completely what's happening. And the codes are crew specific, so it becomes rather difficult to decipher these cryptid messages. So it's pretty easy to circumvent the security procedures in terms of visiting. Not only do they use these carnival talk that we like to call it, and this innocuous form of conversation.
Wait, carnival talk? Is that carny talk? Like Slender Bean? She's literally haunting us everywhere.
To circumvent the things, the security measures, but we also use sign language. We all studied American Sign Language in the Mexican Mafia. Most of the individuals understand some form of sign language. We have money, drugs, dead, hit. There are a multitude, black. There are just a multitude of signs that we've learned and utilized in the visiting room in order to circumvent the audio recording. They also utilize notes, which they secrete in their body cavities and take out to the visit and hold up against the window for the visitor to read. And this is frequently done. Circumventing the security measures in the visiting room are easy. It's done with regularity, and it's almost impossible to stop. And every weekend from that visiting room, there are assaults occurring. There are crew instructions going out. There are RICO activities going on, money laundering. I mean, any crime that you can imagine is occurring in that visiting room on a regular basis.
Wow.
I personally utilized the trust accounts to launder money. I would receive Mexican Mafia payments from multiple sources. And this is only a small fraction of the overall payments that I received. I know multiple individuals in California state prisons, federal prisons, that utilize these trust accounts to launder money. They receive money from a variety of sources. And once it's on their books, they fill out a form called a trust withdrawal application. And they're entitled to release money to any individual they wish. We do this on a frequent basis. I was allowed to utilize the trust account system to buy U.S. savings bond, double-D savings bonds, thousands of dollars worth of bonds. I was allowed to establish a bank account and earn interest on the account in the Bank of America in Crescent City from Pelican Bay. All of these savings and these bonds were placed in the Pelican Bay State Prison vault. But this is a regular occurrence. I mean, this is a system where we can receive illegal money and release legitimate checks, cleansed money. tens of thousands of dollars moving in and off the books on a regular basis. I think an investigation revealed that some individuals have upwards of $25,000 in their accounts.
Wow.
These are individuals in shoe who haven't had a job in 20 years who receive this type of money on a regular basis. In small payments, small increments of $100, $150, $200, $500, but it's cumulative. Every cent of that money is criminal money. There's no mistake in it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, and I don't mean this in a derogatory fashion, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the Mexican Mafia are receiving increments of $150, $200, $350 on a regular basis, is amassing money from illicit sources. Nobody in society can afford to pay individuals this money for their canteen, nor does an individual in prison need $20,000 on his books for
Right.
bubble gum and candy bars. It's clearly, it's painfully obvious that individuals are conducting criminal enterprises from their cells. And the CDC paid for the trip. The Mexican Mafia is a true organization in the purest sense of the phrase. It rivals with some of the more traditional organized crime groups, like 𝗍𝗲 Nostra. Although we haven't replicated their financial success, we far exceed their influence. The Mexican Mafia has a stranglehold in Southern California. It's expanded to Arizona. It has members in New York. It has members in Florida. It has members in Hawaii. It has a member in Connecticut. The Mexican Mafia is extending and expanding rapidly. The progression you see now of the Mexican Mafia is nothing compared to its unrealized potential in 10 years. It will reach that if the CDC and law enforcement agencies allow it to proliferate and continue as it is today. It is not a prison gang. It's obvious that there are prisoners who are Mexican Mafia members, and there are gang members who are Mexican Mafia members, but there are actually very intelligent leaders in the upper echelon. I was a member of the upper echelon, of the elite individuals that had strong business acumen, that set policy for the organization. And I know the objectives of the people who are at the leadership, who are at the helm. And they intend to create a huge organization with very few members, but with huge potential. True organized crime, in the purest sense of the word. It's organized crime. This is not a prison gang. This is not a bunch of individuals sitting around wearing headbands and khakis, a bunch of cholos acting tough. These are gangsters. These are contemporary, modern-day gangsters.
Okay. I thought that I wanted to play that clip before we move on to part 2 of the interview because I think it's interesting to see the difference.
I'm still young. I'm still young, Buck. I feel young. I think it's really your perception of what age is, right? For me, it's like, I don't feel old. I feel matured. I feel wiser.
It's almost like you're living a second life. You've like transformed yourself.
Really? I thought of a book that I wanted to do titled Afterlife, The Afterlife, right?
Because who you were for the first, 35, 40 years of your life is different than who you are now. Literally
after the life sentence. So it's kind of a double entendre, right? People think, oh, afterlife, it's, reincarnation, right? Or when you go to heaven, the afterlife, right? But it's literally after the life sentence. That's That's what I think I want to write about. Not about the mob, not about the blood, the guts, and the grit and the gore, because that was my whole life. And I really want to write about this story, about the reclamation of one's humanity and how difficult that process is. The realization that you were nothing more than a monster and a beast, right? And coming to terms with that, and then resolving that. You know, for a lot of people, it'll never
A monster and a beast. That was, remember earlier I said, I wonder how he deals with that.
resolve. I am the monster. I am a beast. I am a manipulator, a betrayer of the code, and I could never undo what I have done. And I realize that I can't undo the harm that I've caused. But I think in one's reclamation of his own humanity, there is a realization that you can do good. I think that that's important for every man, woman, and child as they mature and they reach that pinnacle in their life where they want to be something different. And for too long, social media has defined me, and traditional media has defined me, and law enforcement has defined me, and gang groupies have defined me. And I've never defined myself, and that's not what I'm trying to do now. I just want something on my epitaph to be more than he was a mobster and he dropped out. I think every man in the ultimate hour, in the final analysis, wants there to be something good about themselves, something good and true and real. And that's what I want to do. I want to do something that is impactful.
It was interesting what you said in the talk.
Yeah, Elijah said he was in Pelican Bay. I believe he went in 93.
The previous talk we did, how you said all these gang members are basically just people pleasers.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe he spent 10 years in the shoe. Don't knock me if I'm wrong, but I think I might be closer, right?
People pleasers that like you never would think of these people as being that.
No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't think of, I mean, if you look at it in the hierarchical structure that's perceived to be, these are apex predators. They walk with swag, they're ferocious, they're violent, and they've proven so, right? They've reached this point in their career where there are icons in the gang subculture. Kind of like being a senator, right? There's an elite amount of senators in the United States. There's 100 senators, right? 2 per state. And the mob, there's a finite amount of mobsters. And these guys have reputations. I mean, some of them are wallflowers. Some of them have never killed, never picked up a knife. They were made for whatever reason they were made. And being made means being inducted into the organization. And those guys, they are who they are, right? But there's buttons in there. There's guys that have put in numerous hits, and there's guys that have put in work and done wet work, and you would be hard pressed to look at them and say that person lacks self-confidence. And I think what you're seeing is a narcissistic personality that they've replaced that lack of confidence with. They've created this alter ego who is Boxer. Boxer, who I used to be, was this ferocious guy that, would kill you just because, right? Oh. But the reality was I was a trembling, afraid person. And you can call me coward all day long, but I'm okay with that. I'm an alive coward, and I'm a happy coward, and I'm a free coward. But I think most of those people that live those roles, and I can't say with a paintbrush, one stroke, say all of them lack self-confidence, but the majority of gang members, they gravitate towards gangs because of that lack of self-confidence, that low self-esteem. And they create this nickname and this alter personality, right? This gang member type, braggadocious, brave, courageous guy, because that's not who they were as children. And their experiences, however traumatic they were, led them to create this alter ego. I
asked this earlier, Elijah. I wonder if there is a draw to want to do bad things still. Good question.
Persona that they now become that literally consumes their entire life. And it's the unfortunate reality that by the time they're 40 or 50, they got a life sentence and they're pelon from 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆𝗆, and I'm not saying anybody specifically. I'm just using an analogy, right? I'm not identifying people here, which I have no problem doing.
But they become institutionalized.
They become institutionalized. They incorporate this as who they are, and they know nothing more than that. They stay stuck in this specific area that they've created in their life, and they can't transcend that. And I think that's what's really sorrowful about this. That's what's really shameful about this life, is that most of the guys think that they're living up to a code, they're staying true and staying strong. But that's fallacy. That is truly fallacy. There's no truth to that, because there is no honor among thieves. There may be some guys who have dignity.
Wow.
They have some internal dignity, but that honor among thieves and that camaraderie and that brotherhood, that's known as 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. I mean, it's brotherhood, like in the organization. That doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. You may have a couple of friends in the organization. You know, mine were Black Dan Barella and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 real friends, and you could do no wrong in their eyes. And that's how I was brought up in the organization. Like, you could do no wrong. 𝗝𝗲𝗃𝗲𝗏 Castro was another good friend of mine. He was a really good friend of mine. 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗏 was a really good friend of mine. But all that falls by the wayside in the midst of politics. So I look at it like that, like, you know, that doesn't exist anymore in the organization, that brotherhood and that friendship. It doesn't exist. Business and mob don't mix, because somebody's always going to be greedy. Somebody's always going to want what you have. They're going to be jealous because you make more, or you exclude them from a specific deal. It's just that way. I mean, you look at the principle of the organization, right? It's a disciplinary organization. They're supposed to be the pillars of discipline within the Hispanic gang subculture and the prison subculture. And you look at these guys out, they're really disciplined. They work out. Some of them don't use drugs, but the majority do. They speak Nahuatl. They study the culture. They're well-read, some of them, you know, traditional forms of literature, like The Art of War, 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆, 48 Laws of Power.
So they're more educated than you would think.
They're more educated than you would think. You know, you got guys reading 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗏𝗃 the Prince, right?
Mhm.
I mean, just they're voracious readers. That's all you have to do in prison. You know, people say I'm articulate and intelligent and all that. I'm not. I am not this articulate, intelligent guy. How smart could I be if I went to prison for 3 life sentences and chose to stick a needle in my arm for the majority of my adult life? How smart could I be if I abandoned my family for a group of individuals who wanted to kill me? I mean, how intelligent is that?
But how have you become this civilized, refined person now?
You know, I just think it's that you mature, you grow up.
You just mature.
You just mature. You educate yourself, obviously. I mean, I used education in there.
Because it's hard to believe. We were talking off camera. There was a situation where you were in court and you pulled a pretty large, tell the story.
The key string. Everybody's fascinated with this thing. I don't know why.
Oh,
You know,
Well, these kind of stories are fascinating.
well, the human being
And
is
it's hard to believe you were once this person.
the human being is the only animal.
Mark Leda does such good job in both of these interviews. These are such good questions. The story's crazy.
that will place something in its rectum for either gratification or
Wait, I need to go back. Come again?
mode of transportation for weapons and contraband is body cavity. And and your mouth isn't big enough for a knife. And males only have one other orifice that would accommodate a weapon, and that's the rectum, right? So it go through a process called keystring, where you wrap a weapon in cellophane and first pad it with toilet paper, wrap it in cellophane, heat seal it, and then you insert it in your rectum. Well, the story was
What
that
the?
an individual by the name of Henry Carlos
Weapons in your rectum?
Indio from Sereno was placed on the hit list, and it was all the dealings of Daniel 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗏. Daniel 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗏 was a primary politicker in the organization, and he was finally deemed no good, and his entire family was placed on the hit list as a result of his politicking. But this was a result of Henry Carlos's stabbing Daniel Grajeda about a year prior to this. I got to the county jail in Los Angeles, and they were politicking, campaigning essentially against Henry Carlos, and it was Daniel Grajeda that led the charge on that. And but when Black 𝗍𝗵𝗆𝗆𝗆, one of my very close friends, told me, yeah, he has to go, then I took that as gospel. You know, this is one of the guys I trusted most in the organization. Like, he was my quasi padrino. A padrino is an individual who vouches for you in your induction and becomes responsible for you. He's your sponsor in essence, right? So my true sponsor was 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆 from Glendon, at the request of Black 𝗍𝗍𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆 Indio, I jumped at the chance. I was one of those eager beavers, you know, willing to please people, kill people to receive acceptance. And the status mobility system in the organization, which is unfortunate but true, is violence. You know, you guys have college and civil commitment and community commitment and you elevate in your social strata through those institutions in the organization. It's not your ability to articulate. It's not your intelligence. It's your willingness to kill for the organization and go to death row. That's the status mobility system. That gets you there, right? That gets you recognized. So for me, I realized that, you know, yeah, I had just finished participating in 2 murders and I was facing adjudication of those cases to the court system. And while in the county jail, this pops up, Indio. So I agreed to do it. John Stinson, AB member, was supposed to go with me on this hit. Little known fact.
Aryan Brotherhood.
Aryan Brotherhood. He was a close friend of Daniel 𝗲𝗄𝗃 and his co-defendant on a murder case that they originally suffered conviction on like 15, 20 years before. But John Stinson was supposed to go on this murder with. He did not. I ended up going to court, got subpoenaed to court that day on a humbug subpoena. It was just an individual. I said, subpoena me on this day and subpoena him on that day, the target. So I go about inserting the knife in my rectum. I go to court and I'm in court in the holding tank. And
he's about to do a hit, had to stick the weapon in his rectum.
And this is at a period of time when they put everybody in.
How big is this knife?
About 6 inches long.
Is it hard to walk?
What
No,
the?
it's surprisingly easy. Believe it or not, I carried one for 5 years, every day. Slept with it, worked out with it, the whole 9 yards.
Up your ass.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't describe it.
Wait, what? Worked out with it? Oh my goodness.
And this is at a period of time when they put everybody in.
How big is this knife?
About 6 inches long.
Is it hard to walk?
No, it's surprisingly easy. Believe it or not, I carried one for 5 years, every day. Slept with it, worked out with it, the whole 9 yards.
Up your ass.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't describe it in such graphic terms, but it is what it is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah. It's you have to have a knife. You have to have a handcuff key. If you don't, you get caught slipping. So yeah, I take the knife. And you know, I want to say this just from the get, right? That this is not glorification. You know, I'm regretful that happened to Henry. It was a mistake. It was politics. He had done nothing wrong. In fact, he did everything right. He had previously hit Daniel 𝗲𝗃𝗃. I mean, if that can be considered right in societal perception, right? But in this society, he did right. He stood up for himself. He stood up to a Titan and he whacked him. And then he got whacked for it, which was all based on politics. So I want to say that this isn't glorification. I'm not gloating about it. I'm not trying to pick off scabs off people's wounds or reopen those painful.
I just find it interesting that you were once that person and now you are who you are here. I find that fascinating that you can be such a different version of yourself.
Me too.
Yeah, somebody told me that the
Me too. I'm fascinated.
other day. So you dress nice. You know, I jokingly said lipstick on a pig. right? Lipstick on a pig. Everybody's heard that phrase, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Oh.
some things I can never undo. I'll always be that person in some people's minds. But I know there's more to me. There's more to me than just being a killer and a mobster and all the other things they call me. But yeah, Henry Carlos was stabbed 29 times.
What was the situation where you pulled out this knife in the court?
Well, I had pulled it out prior to his getting to the tank. I got there before him. So I pulled the knife out. I went to the toilet. I pulled the knife out. And as soon as it hit the toilet, they're metal toilets, everybody in the holding tank looked. They knew something was going down. So I unwrapped it and I waited for him. And as soon as he walked in to the holding tank, there was like 3 or 4 deputies, sheriff's deputies. I ran up to him and I started stabbing him repeatedly. And I pinned him on these built-in wall benches. I pinned him there and I continued stabbing him until I heard to my left, the deputy says, "Get the gun. Go get the gun." And it was then that I stopped. Because they were yelling, "Stop, you know, throw the weapon down, lay on the floor," you know, just all those command presence phrases that are supposed to get your attention. But
Wow.
in a hit, you don't listen to that. You listen for a chambering round, or you listen to get down, right? Because you know the gunner's yelling to get down. You know, you got maybe a fraction of a second after that. So I continued doing it until I heard the guy come back with a weapon. And then I ran to the toilet and I flushed it, the knife, and he stood up. And I'll never forget what he said. He looked at me dead in the eye and says, "You ain't done nothing." And he walked out. And I respected that man so much for that.
Wow.
He was a hog.
Stabbed in the courtroom 29 times. He did that.
A hog is like a badass motherfucker in our world, right? He was a hog. He took it like a man.
You didn't kill him.
Didn't kill him. He didn't whimper. He didn't yell. He didn't squirm. He took it.
Did he understand that it wasn't about you hating him? It was about just some order?
Yeah, he understood that. I mean, this is the mob. You know, when you get hit, it's not about personal stuff, right? Most of the time it is based on personal bias, right? But this was just business.
How many times did you stab him?
29 times.
29 times.
27 times. We stabbed Mon 29 times. Another hit that I did in the county jail in front of deputies as well, right after that. But I respected that man so much because he looked me dead in the face. And you could tell there wasn't an iota of fear in his being, right? His being was just that of a mafioso. And he projected that. And I respected that. I never told anybody that, but I remember he looked at me and says, "You ain't done nothing." And then he just walked out.
Wow.
And that was it. He went to the hospital. They took him to USC Medical Center. And that was it. We heard that he survived the attack. And then that was that hit. But yeah, I mean, carrying knives around and other contraband in your body cavity, that's pretty normal, you know? That's pretty normal. That's not, I guess to the average Joe in the community, like a carpenter.
What a scene. Can you imagine being in the courtroom when he's stabbing this former mafia, well, at the time was a mafia member, stabbing someone 29
You know,
times?
he's not going to take a chisel up his ass to go to work to do his work, right? Or a doctor's not going to take a scalpel up his ass to go do surgery, right? But in the mob, you know, this is the way you do it.
In prison.
In prison, yeah, in prison. Yeah, there's no need to do it out here. God forbid, unless you're into that kind of
Well,
thing.
most of the craziness that we hear about is our prison antics, right?
Yeah, there's some crazy stuff on the streets too. I mean, there's some murders and, you know, a lot of murders have been happening and a lot have happened in the past. One truism about the organization is that it kills people. It kills people. This isn't the Boy Scouts. The mob is the mob. It's called.
Carlos, you say a good point. Imagine the gore and psychology that goes through living through this and what your mind must have to go through doing it, being there and changing your life if you're lucky enough to get out. I heard, I think in one of his interviews, he says he has like PTSD and nightmares like to this day about it.
The Mexican Mafia for a reason. It's a mafia, right? It's not as advanced as La Cosa Nostra or Yakuza or Thieves in Law or some of the other organizations like the Armenian mob. But the Mexican Mafia is truly in its nascency. You know, it's in its birth state. If you look at the Yakuza, it's been here for almost 600 years. Russian mob, you know. Yakuza have been here, I think, over 1,000 years, and the Russian mob 500 years, right? And the Mexican mafia is about 70 years old. 70 years old. So it's really in its initial phases, right? And you look at it for what it was, right? A prison gang. It was a prison gang, a group of apex predators who are the top of dangerous people in California. And they formed this group. They were really just teenagers in the youth authority at the 𝗲𝗶𝗆𝗆𝗆 Vocational Institution in Tracy, California. They came up with a concept and said, let's make the Mexican mafia. And I don't think anybody anticipated what it would become. And I think there are spurts of growth in the organization that brought it to where it is today. And it is truly different from what it was yesterday. And I think that evolution will continue because it's such a dynamic group of individuals. And there are so many individuals that it continues to change because there's a high rate of attrition. The objectives of the organization change. The priorities of the organization change. Now there's peace treaties among all rival gangs in the Department of Corrections in California, not in the federal system where the Mexican mafia exists also. But in California, there's a holding peace treaty. There's a no hands policy on law enforcement, correctional officers. That doesn't apply here on the streets, but it does apply in the CDCR. Hitting cops is bad for business. And having race riots is bad for business. And there are individuals who are sworn enemies of the organization now walking on the yard with them in unison, doing business with the Mexican mafia, Nuestra Familia, Black Guerrilla family members, NR, Nuestra Raza. These individuals are all participating in business with the organization. So it changes, and it's going to continue to change. I think one of the most dynamic things that have changed within the organization is a hierarchical structure. The feds have a commission, and it was ran by 3 individuals in the past. Right now, there's 1 individual who's in the seat of power, which is Raymond Shryock. And in California, there's a group of individuals. It began as 13 individuals, right? Hence the number 13. It has alphanumeric correspondence to the 13th letter in the alphabet, which is M in the English alphabet, and pronounced in Spanish, M. So there's that correspondence, right? But that's since been whittled down. So there are a group of guys pushing policy in the organization within the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation in California that are the de facto leadership of the organization. Will that last? I believe not. Because you have a group of individuals who are, again, aggressive, dominant, narcissistic, and they don't want anybody telling them what to do. Particularly having the weight of life and death in the balance. If a group of individuals has the weight and power of life and death over other mobsters, eventually that will be abused. I think we've seen multiple examples of that already in the past couple of years with the murders of a variety of individuals in the CDCR and on the streets. And because they're open cases, I won't name them, I won't discuss them. But yeah, you'll see those abuses. There's a hierarchical structure. And I think one of the things that changed in the organization was the ridding of mesas. Mesas were ad hoc commissions comprised of non-members, basically sureños and camaradas, right? And there's a clear definition of those two things, which I need to put out there right now, right? Every 17, 18-year-old you hear now in prison, he's a camarada. Self-professed camarada. And traditionally, a camarada was an individual who was known to the organization, put in work for the organization, had years of association with the organization. There were camaradas and associates. That's what there were. And now, every swinging dick in prison is a camarada. So they say, right? But that's not the case. They may consider themselves camaradas, but the organization does not consider them camaradas. And that's the difference. There's a really, again, that status mobility system for gang members to elevate from resident, which is an individual who is Hispanic, but not a gang member, but has family members or lives in a gang-influenced area, There's a Southsider, an individual from a gang that's traditionally or historically loyal to the organization. There is a 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆, who's an individual whose voiced his willingness to participate in violence or has participated in violence for the organization and has adopted the ideology of the organization. There is a 𝗝𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, which is like a hair away from being made. And even those guys, only a few of them are going to be made because it's such an elitist group. And then there's a 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, a made guy, right? So there is a social strata within the prison and Hispanic gang subculture. And I don't want to name the organization a prison gang because it's not that anymore. This is a criminal syndicate that controls a vast amount of participants in the gang world. So there are a lot of changes. And I'm always asked that, like, how do you stay up on all this stuff? And it's discipline. It's what I do. I'm a subject matter expert and expert witness. I'm a lecturer. I teach. And that's what I do.
You explained to me earlier that you are not an informant. You're an expert. You're an expert witness.
Have I acted in that capacity? Am I debriefed and all that? Sure. That's what you do when you debrief. And here's another thing.
Interesting.
People talk about they didn't have to debrief. I've listened to.
We hear a lot about in the prison genre about debriefing, right?
So many social media postings about people saying, "Oh, I didn't have to debrief. I just told them I wanted to go PC," and that's not the case. That's not the case. And not everybody's a dropout, right? They all say, "I'm a dropout. I'm a dropout." You had to drop into something before you drop out. So dropouts are guys that were really in the business, right? Those are the real dropouts. They're classified by the SSU, the Office of Correctional Safety, as dropouts. Because you defected or you went to PC doesn't make you a dropout, right? And everybody who goes to PC has to tell the cops, "Hey man, my life's in danger. I need to get off this yard. I need to be protected and go to SNY, Sensitive Needs Yards," which is a fancy acronym for protective custody, PC, right? So everybody that's done this is told in the past. I'm not trying to make what I did look any better.
Yeah, there you go. All the controversy. You're hearing it from a former Mafia member. What is SNY? What is debriefing? I
don't really care what people think about that. I truly don't. But I hear all these guys rationalizing their decisions, right? Like, "Oh no, I PC'd, but I didn't tell on anybody." You had to tell on somebody to go to PC. You had to make that initial contact with law enforcement, tell them who the individuals were who were a threat to you, what you were being threatened for, and why you needed protection. It's basic. Some people do not have to debrief because they did not have a role in the organization. That defines a dropout. If you had to participate in the debrief, you're a dropout. You're a dropout. But even on the lowest end of this, you had to go tell on somebody. You had to. It's just the way you get out. And now that is largely abandoned, that policy of debriefing to get out of the shoe or whatever the reason was, Now they've rid the California Department of Corrections of indeterminate shoot terms. Debriefing is not the norm anymore. You can become inactive through classification if they receive no confidential information or behavioral documentation that indicates your gang participation. They classify you as inactive. So that's one of the things I wanted to say. I think it's important that people hear that because there's so many people that have these misconceptions about what a dropout is, what a 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗏𝗏𝗏 is, what a 𝗝𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is, whether they had to debrief or whether they're really dropouts. And in the grand scheme of things, I think you're seeing the majority of the prison population become SNY because people are living in droves. The active individuals in the organization, the mobsters and the camaradas and the 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, they're a minority now. They are a real and true minority. And I part of what I said last time was that there's an alternative life, and I think it's sad that some people can't see that and will never see it, and I truly meant that's what you want to be, then be all you can be. I'm not trying to dissuade anybody, but the consequences of your actions are death in prison. No other alternative. There's no retirement plan. You're going to die in your cell, an old man, or in the medical ward or the infirmary, they call it.
Wow.
Are you going to get whacked out? That's it. There's no alternative. If that's what you want, then hey, knock yourself out, bro. Be all you can be. And some people will make that choice. Some people have made that choice. But I think it's a sad testament to the individuals themselves that's all they can see themselves as cutthroat mobsters or gangsters or wannabe gangsters or sureños or camaradas, which are really just, wannabe gangsters. They're not the real guys. They're the support system. And that's all they'll ever be. That's the pinnacle of their life, being a camarada or a sureño.
What are the leadership dynamics in the organization?
It really boils down to egalitarianism, right?
Oh.
People think I'm a leader. I was not.
Oh.
People thought I was like at the top of the mob. I'm the first one to tell you, I was just a button guy. Did I have some, what we call palabra, word? A little bit. Did I do some hits? Some. Did I participate in some stuff to change the organization? Yeah. But I wasn't a leader. Joe Morgan wasn't the godfather. That doesn't exist in the organization. In fact, if somebody went and professed himself to self-proclamation, I'm a leader of the organization now, I'm the godfather, they'd kill him first yard. They would whack him out because there are none. It was based on one man, one vote, majority rules, direct democracy, egalitarian. Everybody's equal. We're all equal. All of us are generals. But here's some of the cold, hard facts. Some members are more equal than others, right? And not everything takes a vote because everything's supposed to be done by vote and consensus, right? Like, hey, we think Joe Blow over there is informing. Well, let's take a vote. Okay. The majority says, yes, let's kill him. That's how it works. Sometimes it's just me, you, and Stan over here say, let's kill him. Let's whack him because we know he's an informant. Boom, boom, boom. We whack him out. Right. And people, they'll get their dander up. It'll shock them. Like, why did you hit that guy? There was no vote taken. Well, it had to be done immediately. It was imperative that he get hit immediately. And one of the phrases like, leave it alone. That's in the order, leave it alone. In other words, it's mob business, leave it alone. And here is the harshest truth in the organization. Dead men have no support, right? So if a member gets killed, who's going to put their neck on the chopping block and say, you know what? That was wrong. I'm going to fight this till the end of my day. In fact, kill me because you killed this mobster. Nobody's going to do that. That opposition goes away in a couple of days when you get a piece of his territory or, you inherit something from him or you just realize that you're pretty close to getting yourself killed voicing opposition to the guys who killed him because you just marked yourself by these guys. So like that loyalty, that doesn't exist. Are there some friends in the organization? Yeah, I'm sure there are. Sure, they're true believers. They've drank the Kool-Aid. They've taken it all in, and that's who they are. But it doesn't really exist. And that hierarchical structure, like you said, everybody's the same. There's more vocal individuals. There's more individuals that have some palabra, that have some influence, but leadership, no, that doesn't exist. And I think that's one of the downfalls of the organization too. That there's no centralized leadership, and that egalitarian principle always plays through and creates internal politics in the organization. And drug use, those are the big downfalls of the organization. How can a junkie, and I don't say that disparagingly, right? Because I was a junkie. Oh. I won't speak about anything that I don't have a subjective experience on. And I'm not far removed from that. I have 18 years sober. On the 22nd of December is 18 years sober. And I wouldn't forego that for anything. I wouldn't give that up for anything. But I'm not saying in a derogatory manner that these individuals have because they have substance abuse problems, which is more a delicate way to put it. So I'm going to retract that junkie thing. I don't want I don't want to hurl stones at people who are suffering. But that is one of the big drawbacks of the organization, drug use. Drug use. Think of individuals, how far they could go if they had clarity, the simple peace of mind of not having to worry about a fix or a pill or a drink or anything like that. I think that's probably one of the biggest pitfalls is the lack of centralized leadership, the continuous infighting, politicking. And those are the banes of the organization, I think.
Wow.
I think it could do a lot more. It could be a lot more. It could be something that's monolithic, but I don't ever see it going beyond what it is now.
He says so many things that are so powerful.
A prison-centric organization that has influence in community gangs, because 99.9% of its membership is serving life in prison, and they recruit lifers. They recruit lifers, which perpetuates that cycle. This is a prison gang. This is a prison gang. This is a prison gang. Until they can break that mold and extend their metastases beyond that. And I call it a metastases because it really is a malignancy. Then they'll remain that.
The crimes that you've committed, sounds like they've affected you in ways now that you have a lot of remorse over it.
I do.
How did you process all of that and come to where you are today?
You know, I've done a lot of stuff. It's irretractable. It hurt so many people. And it wasn't until I felt that hurt. I mean, I went through the process of imagining what it would be to be the victim, or your family member was murdered, or somebody was assaulted or extorted, and it pales in comparison to experiencing that personally. And I won't speak on the topic because just not something I'm going to do, but I've experienced loss. Not a result of my defection or anything like that, but I've experienced true loss. And that was the epifocal moment in my life where you get it, you know? You feel it. You feel the pain that they felt, and you feel it every day. It never goes away. It never diminishes, and you realize, I have done this to so many people. I have made people feel this sorrow and this loss. And I would never want to be the inflictor of that kind of pain again, because it's never ending. It doesn't go away. It doesn't diminish. You learn to cope with it. You learn to cope with loss, but it doesn't go away. You know, and to think that I've done so much, I don't deserve to be here. I don't deserve that. A lot of people are accurate when they say that. He doesn't deserve to be free. You're right, I don't. But my redemption and my forgiveness is by the grace of God. I just had to accept that, you know? I'm not going to sit here and pontificate or go into a theological rant. I'm just not going to do that. That's not who I am. But when people question redemption, that's guaranteed to you. In my personal spiritual beliefs, it's guaranteed to you. All you have to do is accept it. So whether people accept that redemption or not, it doesn't bother me. I know I'm redeemed. And that's how I live in peace. Now I have remorse, right? I have remorse for a lot of things I've done. Some of them I don't. I don't have remorse for some of the things that I participated in. Not even an iota of remorse. And I'm just going to be real about that.
Wow.
You know, there's one specific case where this individual killed some children, and he was himself murdered in San Quentin on death row. I don't feel bad about that guy losing his life. Her kids, you know?
Yes, protect the children. I really love that. He said that.
But I also understand that I'm nobody to cast judgment. You know, that's not our position as human beings, right? But yeah, I think it's when it impacts you. That's when you really understand. Because you can have all the book reading and courses and knowledge about remorse and victim reconciliation and the impact on victims. And I've taken all those courses in prison. I've done all that. I mean, I did that for years, right? I did therapy, and I still do therapy for PTSD, because you can't live that kind of lifestyle and believe it's not going to affect your psyche somehow, because it really does. I mean, it really does affect you. And I'm seeing the results of that now.
Wow.
I think I'm far advanced in my coping, but
we were wondering about that in the first part of the interview.
And victim awareness, yeah, hit home when it happened to me, you know, and that's when you really realize the impact. You know, you can voice and mouth those words. Yeah, I'm remorseful. I apologize for what I've done, but I truly do. To those people I hurt, and their family members, and their surviving friends and associates, they still feel that pain. And they can believe me or they won't. But I am sorrowful for a lot of things I've done in my life.
It's nice that you're able to come back in this type of situation and maybe give a clear picture to maybe younger men who are considering getting into that lifestyle, and showing them what the honest truth of it all is.
I think that, you know, those guys that are going to do it are going to do it. You know, I do a lot of work with some organizations that work with kids. And my message is this, like, I'm not here to tell you not to do it. I am not. It's far be it from me to say, don't do this, when I did it myself. But these are the consequences of your action. Because every action has a consequence, positive or negative, right? This is what you have to look forward to. Brutality, betrayal, heartache, loneliness, you know, being separate from your woman, your family, your sons, your daughters, dying in prison. I don't think it gets much harsher than that. If that's what you want, like, be all you can be. If you knock yourself out, you're going to hurt a lot of people along the way. Most importantly, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to deprive yourself and steal yourself of any future you had. I mean, I never would have thought that I could do what I do now, that I could be a subject matter expert, a lecturer, and do what I do, be an expert witness. I never thought it would translate into that. And it wasn't opportunistic. It just happened. You know, I just became what I became. You know, you call me informant, all that. Yeah, okay, that's good. But I'm happy. And I live a law-abiding life. I don't break the law. I might speed once in a while, but I'm even scared to do that, because if they catch me, my insurance rate's going to go up, you know? So I live a good life. And this is the life available to those kids, those participants now that are just on the fringe, those people in prison now, abiding by the code. You have an alternative. This is the alternative. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do what I have done. But there is an alternative. And there is peace. There is tranquility. You know, it's hard to find that in everyday life, and the hustle and the movement and the speed of everything going on. You may lack opportunity. You may be economically disadvantaged, but there's a way to live a better life. It doesn't have to be violence and drugs and killing.
But sometimes it's not a simple decision about, oh, this is a better life than that one. It has more to do with the good parenting you had, the good role models you had as a kid.
I think that the environmental influence has a lot to do with decision-making process that leads you to that generational influence. Some people see their uncles and their grandfathers and their fathers that are members, and I get that. You know, that's all they know. There's a thing in psychology called modeling, right? Where kids model the behavior that they witness, or another phrase called behavioral replication. They repeat that behavior, right? So we get it. It's ingrained in us. That's what we do. If it's drug use, it's drug use. There's a genetic link to addiction as well, and substance abuse. I get all that. You could have all the psychosocial strikes in the world against you, but still make the right decisions. Like, let me take myself, for example. Traumatized as a kid, sexually abused.
Wow.
Witnessed domestic violence from my house. emotionally detached father and a permissive mother. And it destroyed me. It destroyed me.
Listen to this is wild because some people can't really even talk about trauma, you know? It's a painful thing.
Environmental exposure to gangs through my brother and the neighborhood. And we lived in nice areas, Thousand Oaks, Cerritos. Those are nice bedroom communities. By anybody's estimation, they're nice places to live. But it destroyed me in my decision-making process. It crumbled my self-esteem. It affected my psyche where I wanted to go out and be that people pleaser. I wanted the acceptance, right? But for millions of people who experience the same thing, they go on to become cops, lawyers, doctors,
True.
bankers, garbage men, electrician, maintenance guys. They make the right decision. They never go out and kill people. They never stick a needle in their arm. They never ingest a drug. They never hurt people. Because of who they are. And I think that's when that parental exposure kicks in. You learn how to cope. For our culture, dealing with trauma, it's not even spoken of.
Yep.
You don't even whisper those words because it's not masculine.
Yep.
It's emasculating, as a matter of fact. And to seek out therapy for those things, it's sacrilegious. Number one, you can't afford it.
So true.
Number two, it's like therapy. Yeah, I'll give you therapy. Here's a chancla. I'll hit you with a chancla. It's therapy, you know? But now with, the community and society being so cognizant of the impacts of trauma and those psychosocial strikes that have affected so many people in a negative way, there's so much support out there. In fact, when we're in Pelican Bay, SHU, and I thought one day I want to parole. I was an active mobster, and there were no programs to participate in. So there was a psychologist by the name of Dr. Craig Noble. He would debrief SEAL teams after they came in after their operations, right? And he would walk the tier once a month as a part of this resolution of Pelican Bay, the Madrid versus Gomez resolution. They would send psychs in once a month. And Dr. Noble would come by, and he was an engaging guy. And I told him, I said, Dr. Noble, how do we participate in NA and AA and participate in therapy if it's not available to us? So he cocked his head for a minute. He says, I'll tell you what, they have anything on the prison cable or any books you can read or any kind of literature you can get? I says, yeah, there's a ton of it. I have a ton of it. He says, we'll submit book reports.
Yeah, keep it in the family, right, Evie?
To me. Read the book, submit it to him. I'll pull you out and we'll talk about it. And this was at a time when it was unheard of to go to the psych. You can't go to the psych. Not in prison. You cannot go. It's like a strike. It's a sign of weakness, number one, and a strike against you, number two.
Yeah.
But I thought in my position as a mobster, I had enough influence, and the people knew me well enough that it was well-intentioned, because it was well-intentioned. I'm just trying to get ready for the board at some point where I'm going to go to the board and say, look, I did participate in this. I did do therapy as unorthodox as it was. So I started going to the psych. And he would talk to me, give me an intelligence, IQ test, all that stuff, right? And he said the same thing. He said, you're surprisingly intelligent. He said, why are you doing this?
Wow.
And I told him, I said, there's nothing else I can do. I already got life sentences. And I can't really talk about it, Doc. He says, there's another way. And it stood in my head. It stood in my head that here's a man who's professional, that has compassion enough to make time for me and suggest an alternate route. He didn't say lock up or debrief or PC, none of that. Those words never entered our exchange. But he had an impact on me. He had an impact on me. And I remember him for what he did. And then, surprisingly, other people started going as well within my pod. they started going and seeing Dr. Noble, and I was surprised to see that one of them got out. He was a good friend of mine. I see him now on social media at times. He's an activist, and I'm happy for him that he didn't debrief. He was never really a mobster to begin with. He became associated later, but living a good life. I'm happy for him. So some people make the right decision. You know, some people see the alternative path, you know, not to immerse themselves in that lifestyle, because you could be on the fringe and exposed to that and never pick up a knife for them. Unless you're called to do so. And then, you know, then you go. And when you go, it's like you've opened up Pandora's box. You've jumped into the abyss. And that's really what it is. When you do that first hit, you're going to be called for the second one.
Wow.
And then it gets good to you. Like you like that feeling.
It grows on you?
It grows on you. It gets easy. And I think that's where you lose your humanity. Your humanity when you're looking forward to doing the hits. When you jump at the chance to do them, it evaporates slowly, like ether. It goes away. Your humanity is really.
And what is it? Adrenaline? That
I think it's the adrenaline, the recognition, the acknowledgement, all those things that you're lacking in your life, right? You somehow interpret that as acceptance, as approval. Oh, you whacked that guy good. You know, you did good, bro. You did good, little brother. When you're not a carnal, they call you little brother, right? They used to. I don't know if they still do that. But that was a phrase they used. You did good, little brother. Wow. You did good. I was like, he called me brother. This is a mobster. Call me little brother. I remember that phrase when I did my first hit. And it was like everything. It was like a medal.
How old were you on your first one?
My first hit, I was 22 years old. No, 21 years old. I did my first hit at DBI. I explained that. I was a guy from Angel from Santa Monica.
Yeah.
And I did that first hit. My first day on the yard at DVI, they asked me to do that. After that, it was, like I said, easy. They got easy, and that's the terrible part. And then making decisions. You're so far detached. Like they ask you for a vote. Hey, so and so's got to go. What do you say? Yeah, whatever. You know. And when you really look at it, when you take it down to its molecular level, you've just cast a vote to kill somebody. Whether it's effectuated or not, could take years, but he's forever on the lista after that. You asked me a while ago before we started filming, like, are they still after you? Yeah, they're still after me. That's a never-ending thing. There's nothing I could do to make amends with the organization.
No, but when
𝗠𝗲𝗆 was asking about this earlier. She was like, does he have a hit on his back?
I invite you to come back, I have to consider the danger this puts you in.
That's why you came to me this time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm no dummy. You know, that was a one-time thing coming to you. From now on, you know, henceforth, you'll always come to me, and I'll always be a different spot if we decide to do this in the future. Mm-hmm. But I appreciate you making that accommodation and coming out to me. I truly do. And I know you understand my situation. So that threat's always there. You know, I have to keep moving. You know, I have to maintain my vigilance.
Is law enforcement involved in protecting you?
Some degree. I have numerous agents on speed dial.
Thank you for this, Oscar. You say Mr. Enriquez is one of a kind. He's a gentleman. I truly admire him. I agree with that sentiment. I really do.
And that's all I'll say. I think that going into this is a slippery slope.
But where you're located now, do you get recognized at all?
No.
Yeah,
nobody in the world will recognize me out there.
Right.
No, you wouldn't even imagine where I'm at. But it's beautiful. It's tranquil. Wow. I have peace there. And yeah, I think that threat will always exist. You know, and I think it's important that that message gets across, that there is peace. There is peace in this decision-making process. It's not, I get it. That emotional decision to leave the organization is so impactful. I cried for 2 weeks.
Really?
First day I left, I wanted to go back. Like, no, take me back. I don't want to be a rat or a PC. And, but it abated. It abated slowly but surely. But the first 2 weeks was turmoil, like emotionally crying. I was a wreck. I remember I flushed my knife, the one I kept keistered for those 5 years. I flushed it, and I flushed my handcuff key because I went everywhere with that. And I remember I went out to the yard after that, to the next morning, and I had like an anxiety attack. I thought, oh, I forgot my knife in the cell.
Wow.
I don't have my knife with me. And I realized you flushed it, you know, but it was such a cathartic thing to be free of all that. After a couple of months, it got easier. I mean, the sting of being called an informant and a rat and a PC and a coward, that lasted for a couple of years, you know, and now it's like, you're judging me? Okay. You know, you're entitled to your opinion. That's okay. I'm okay with that. I realize that a difference of opinion doesn't mean that we're enemies. It just means that you have a difference of opinion. That's who you see me as, and that's okay, because the reality is you're not in my life. You're not a significant person that means something and is meaningful to the community. The only people that call me this are the individuals who are part of that subculture. And look, I get it. I betrayed the code. But really, is it a code? Is that what you live for? Is that what you're going to die for? And the final analysis, will you be the same guy that you want me to be? Take a bullet in my head and say, okay, I broke the rules, kill me? No, I'm kicking and fighting and yelling and all that when you come to get me. You know, I'm not taking it like a man. You know, no, I'm just being real. You know, I'm running. Look, this is survival. And you call it whatever you want to, but we have an instinctual survival mechanism within us. And I heard the footsteps. I seen the writing on the wall. I knew I was going to get whacked. You know, that's why I left. Think I'm stupid? I'm going to stay there? Hell no.
It's true. Think about everything he did on the crimes that he wasn't convicted on as well. Yeah, he probably would have got
committed murders for the organization. I sacrificed my life for this organization. I willingly killed people and accepted those life sentences so another member could go free. But I was responsible. I did those murders. And here I was dealing with politics. Individuals wanted to kill me for no reason. I wasn't a rat. I wasn't a coward. I was none of those things. They wanted to kill me. And I saw the writing on the wall. So there's a lot of speculation as to why I left. It was that, you know, I started getting anxiety attacks. There was the thing where they wanted to kill kids. It had a big impact on me. They wanted to kill family members if they couldn't get to you. And that was tossed around in the organization. That was huge for me. That was huge. Like, how can you kill innocent people? And that's one thing I'll say about the organization. One of the things that I was most proud of, that they don't kill normal individuals, average Joes and family members. They don't go after those people. And I think it's one of the things that sets the Mexican Mafia aside from the rest of those organizations, that they still have this moral streak within them. And for me, that's what defined the organization, is that there was this moral streak within it, that they wouldn't do certain things. And that holds true today. That holds true today.
All right. Rene, thank you so much for coming back.
You're welcome.
You're always fascinating.
Well, thank you for coming to me.
Perhaps we'll do more.
Perhaps. Peace out.
Thank you.
Wow. I love those two interviews. Well done, Mark. Well done. And shout out to you guys for being here and hanging out. That's 2.5 hours, almost 2.5 hours. I wanted to do them both in one so we could just get a good review of both of them. There's a lot more, like Carlos said, there's a lot of interviews, there's a lot of content on him. But again, you know, not everything is reliable, not everyone on YouTube. So if you do research him, I know Soft White Underbelly and Hector Bravo are two sources he considers reliable. So I'm gonna make another live so we could go over more interviews because he does like FBI interviews. It's really good stuff. And he has his own channel. So I really enjoyed this type of topic and I want to incorporate it into our true crime. So you guys know I'm usually on most of the day, so we can talk about really anything. And I'm into it. I'm into his story. And yeah, I really liked it too, Evie. Thank you. Yeah. And now you guys know who he is, and he has been in the chat before. So, you know, it's awesome. It's awesome to cover this and hear these experiences. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to let you go. We will be back with more Rene Enriquez content, interviews, etc. that we'll be watching and replaying older videos. Yeah, he's on YouTube too. He is, that's his channel name is Rene Enriquez Uncensored. I'll drop the link in a second. You should go check him out. He has really good content. A lot like us here, like phone calls. I mean, I'm not an informant, but he has like wiretaps and all kinds of stuff. Thank you, Debbie. Melly, your channel makes a difference. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I really do. That was so fascinating. Yeah, for those of you who didn't know who he was, and for those of you, you know, you're allowed to say your opinion in the chat, whether you like him or not, whether you think he's a snitch or not. Yeah, I think it's an admirable story. Very interesting. So I appreciate you guys for being here and supporting and hanging out and watching. We do have another, per usual, turn on your little notifications. Make sure you're subbed up. Please hit the like button. We will be back with true crime after this live. So I will definitely see you guys on the next one. And like I said, we will be continuing to cover the Rene Enriquez story. And I hope you guys enjoy it. So like I said, please give your girl a like on the way out, and I will see you guys on the next live. Thank you for being here.
So all they do is work, but nobody can hide once she gets a hold of that paperwork. So don't you dare come in here acting like a jerk. Dance might make her dance, but new court docs will make her wanna twerk. Dark hair shining in the Cali sun, Melly on the case, so no point in trying to run. You Sims can ask for feet pics, but you getting none. It's 𝗠𝗲𝗃 with Melly, let's have some fucking fun. So if you're feeling for true crime, like it's a drug, 𝗠𝗲𝗃 with Melly is your motherfucking plug. Going so hard on criminals, they'll call their mama for a hug. She's finding out all the stuff they try to sweep under the rug. Dark hair shining in the Cali sun, Melly on the case, so no point in trying to run. You Sims can